Welcome back, everybody. If you are just tuning in for the first time, in our first segment, we talked about the NFL franchise tag deadline and the players that did not get tagged. If you want to talk, we talked about the players that did get tagged in yesterday's episode. Segment 2, we talked about the NBA MVP race, what the resumes were at this point in the season, and who I thought was going to end up taking the award home. And we just finished talking about the impending collapse of the NCAA. In this segment, we are going to transition into a little bit of hockey. The NHL trade deadline is right around the corner, 2 days from now, and there were a couple massive trades that were made over the yesterday and over the course of the day today. But before we get into those trades and breaking them down, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net, leave a tip or donation. Again, that link is gsmcpodcast.net. Your message will pop up on the bottom of the screen for everyone to see. We'll have a little discussion about what you had to say. We appreciate everything that you do give. Again, that link is gsmcpodcast.net. But like I was saying, we are going to talk about the NHL trade deadline. And I want to start with the trade that happened yesterday, that being the Capitals and Vegas Golden Knights trading for Anthony Mantha. So Anthony Mantha from the Capitals to the Vegas Golden Knights for 2 picks. It was a 2024 second-round pick and a 2026 fourth-round pick. Anthony Mantha, a guy that the Capitals traded a lot to get from the Red Wings a couple seasons ago, about, I guess at this point it was like four or 5 years ago. He has been pretty banged up since that trade happened. He hasn't really put a full season together until now. He right now has 20 goals on the year. This is his highest offensive output since the 2019 season. His career high in goals is 25. If he continues this pace, he should be on pace for a career season right now. The last time that he had 20 goals was in 2019, and before that in 2018. And this is his first full year healthy again. He has been a bright spot for that Capitals offense that has struggled since Alex Ovechkin took a big step down this season. So the Vegas Golden Knights getting him for a second and a fourth is a very nice pickup for them. The Golden Knights, who are the defending Stanley Cup champions, are trying to repeat here, adding a little more depth scoring, something that is all too important in the NHL playoffs. You can have the best front line, but they're not on the ice for the entire game. You need depth scoring. You need those guys that can come in at the end of the game, come in against the other team's third line, and give you great minutes, be a threat to score so you're not impotent on offense for half the game. Anthony Mantha is probably going to slot into the second or third line for the Vegas Golden Knights. Again, give them that depth scoring that every team desperately needs this time of year. The other big trade that happened earlier today, Vladimir Tarasenko was traded from the Ottawa Senators to the Florida Panthers. And this is interesting because Vladimir Tarasenko, a little bit older of a player, but he still has a lot of juice left in him. It was, again, 2 picks. It was a 2025 third and a conditional 2024 fourth. The condition on that 2024 fourth round pick is that if the Panthers end up winning the Stanley Cup this year, then that fourth round pick turns into a third round pick. Tarasenko has had a pretty good season for him. He's a little bit older. It's not his career best season, but he's still a really good name. We just talked about depth scoring. He's going to slide in to a pretty stacked Panthers lineup, a Panthers lineup that is one of the best in the entire league, offensively at least. He's going to slide in there. Both of these deals have 50-50 salary retention, so the Caps get 50% of Anthony Mantha, and the Senators are holding on to 50% of Tarasenko's contract. The there's a couple guys that still are on the block. Like I said, there are 1.5 days before the end of the trade deadline. A couple guys that might get traded, but we're looking at guys like Jake Gensel from the Penguins. Again, an older guy. The Penguins are not really in position to compete anymore. Jake Gensel has been with the Penguins for quite a while. He again, depth scoring everywhere. Him, Tyler Toffoli, Frank Vetrano, all three of those guys offer depth scoring for not a huge price. Now, it's not going to be cheap. We're not going to get these. You're probably going to have to give up a second or third round pick for a lot of these guys. Maybe a second pick later on, like we've been seeing in a lot of these deals. But it's there's a lot of stuff left for the trade deadline to happen. In fact, just about here we go. We just have a new trade that's just coming in. Alex Winberg being traded to the Rangers from the Kraken. He's going to slot in. Again, all of this is depth scoring. These are teams that are gearing up for the playoffs, getting depth scoring. There are two things that are important in hockey playoffs, and that is depth scoring and goaltending. And a lot of these trading for goaltenders is going to take a lot. There's only really one goaltender theoretically on the market, that being Jacob Markstrom of the Flames, but there hasn't been too many talks around him outside of going to the Devils, and the Devils just fired their head coach, so they are not going to be buyers at the deadline. They're definitely going to be sellers there. Tyler Toffoli is one of those guys that they might sell, but the Rangers go and they get a third-line center in Alex Wenberg. They desperately needed some center depth. They've got top two centers, but they're not done. The Rangers are close. They have one of the best goalies in the league. Like I said, the recipe for winning a Stanley Cup is goaltending. They've got that. Check mark. Igor Shesterkin is one of the best goalies in the entire world, arguably the best. And then the other is depth scoring, and they're going to go out and they're going to fill that out. They might go out and get Jake Gensel or Frank Vetrano. So they gave up. It wasn't too big of a package for it. Again, it was a 50% retention of the contract for the Kraken. So it's gonna be an interesting stretch. We'll do a whole recap of the entire trade deadline, but there were two breaking trades overnight and today that I thought we should talk about before the trade deadline is over. I'd love to hear some thoughts. There were a couple guys out there that I still expect to be traded. A guy like the Capitals still trading Max Pacioretty. I know he's a little older, but he's had a pretty solid season for them. The asking price isn't going to be that high, and again, depth scoring out there in the playoffs is hugely important. You go and get a veteran who has playoff experience in Max Pacioretty from a team like the Caps, who aren't really competing for a playoff spot. They technically still have a shot, but they're all but out of gas at this point. So trading him to a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs. Excuse me, I couldn't get that out of my brain. Trading him to a team like the Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs don't have a lot of assets. They do have one of the best players in hockey in Austin Matthews, but they don't have any depth outside of that first line. So I expect them to make a move, not a big one, But to go out and get some guy on an expiring contract that's aging, they can get for cheap to try and make a push in this playoff, because they have to win something soon. They won a playoff series last year, first time in forever. But this Leafs team needs some work. This isn't quite the same Leafs team as before, and you have to keep competing whenever you have a guy like Austin Matthews on your roster, no matter what. But yeah, there's still a day and a half left to go. The trade deadline ends Friday at 3 p.m. So we've got just under 48 hours to go until the trade deadline is over. A lot of moves left to be made. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on anything we talked about in today's episode. But thank you everyone so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Tomorrow we are going to go more in depth about the Buffalo Bills cutting their entire defense, as well as more breaking news throughout the day. Thank you everybody so much for tuning in. Hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you same place, same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.